Washington State, in its infinite wisdom of how the government absolutely must take care of everyone else at the expense of other taxpayers, passed a long-term care program. And what it'll do is you pay into it. It comes out of your paycheck starting July 1st. And then if you need some sort of long-term care later in life, you can get up to like $34,500 in benefits. Now, it ran into some problems right away. There were exemptions that were absolutely necessary and common sense that weren't put into the law at the beginning. Like, what if you're someone who lives in Oregon, commutes into Washington State to earn a living, but you actually live in Oregon and you don't get any benefit from any of it? And then there were people who, what if they're really close to retirement, for instance? Are you going to really start taking money from their paycheck right now and then they're not fully invested? And then there's this whole question that remains to be seen about whether it's even financially solvent, whether you're going to have enough money going in to be able to fund the program long term. Because back when this was first passed, people were given a window of opportunity to opt themselves out, to say, I'm going to purchase private long-term care insurance. And then if I do that and the state accepts it and sends me a letter saying you're exempt, then I'm good. Well, so many people did that private companies actually stopped offering that benefit in Washington State because they were worried that people would get an exemption and then the program would start and then they just cancel their policies. And that was kind of a workaround, right? So anyway, let me address a few frequently asked questions that you have as the long-term care tax prepares to begin. So let's go. Frequently asked question number 1. If I obtained an approved exemption in 2022, is it still valid? The answer is yes. If you went through the process, you got a letter from the state of Washington because you obtained private long-term care and you have that, it is still valid. You don't have to go about and do it again. Okay, what do we got? Number 2. Can I opt out later on? No. If you have not received an approved exemption before it starts on July 1st, there is not and you're working in Washington State right now, there's not an opportunity for you to opt out. You are stuck with this thing for life, unfortunately. Okay, what else we got? If I purchased a private plan early on, can I be refunded? Highly unlikely. So there is a lot of frustration from folks who purchased a policy, even though they didn't want one, but they had to purchase it to be able to opt out of the state plan. And a lot of those people thought, I'll purchase this policy. And then when the state program begins, I'm just going to cancel it. However, there was a huge delay in implementation of the program. So then they were stuck with this policy. They didn't even want paying for it every month. And now finally the program's going to start. I'm sure a lot of them will cancel their private policies next month. But the question is, okay, if we bought that policy just so we could opt out, can we get refunded for all of that? I mean, technically, I guess that comes down to an agreement with the private company that you purchased it with, but I think the answer is probably no. Okay, we got one more here of frequently asked questions. Oh, this is an obvious one. How much is going to be taken out of my paycheck every 2 weeks or every month? So it's 58 cents per $100. So if you make $100,000 a year, this is going to cost you $580 a year. And I think most people will end up paying into it, $250 to $500 a year, essentially. So that's a lot, especially when we've been talking about high gas prices and all the other competing interests for your money. For people who never wanted this, their paycheck is going to start to be garnished by the government for something that who knows if they'll ever need or benefit from. It's just government overreach, big government at its absolute worst. So one of the state lawmakers who was vehemently opposed to this program is Washington State Senator Curtis King. He's a Republican who represents the Yakima area. And I invited him in to talk a little bit about the program finally being implemented and what they might be doing to try to undo it. A lot of people, as you said, went out and they got a private long-term care plan that they didn't even want, right? But they're like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get the opt-out letter from the state, and then I'm going to cancel that sucker, and then I'm just going to be exempt, which, why wouldn't you? That's what I would have done, right? Yep. But now they've been paying monthly for a long-term care plan for all this time that they never wanted in the first place. Yeah. Have you heard a lot of complaints from folks about that?
I have not heard complaints about that. What I've heard complaints about is we thought when they postponed it for a year that they were going to open it up and we could do it again.
Yeah.
We could go out and get one. Of course, we tried to do this in a 3-month period, and we just overwhelmed the insurance industry, as you know, and they just closed it down. Or there would have been 600,000 or 700,000 people exempt. But we're not going to. Government doesn't want to open it back up. I mean, I had an email from a gentleman who said, I moved into the state. I have a long-term care plan, which is much better than this WellCares. But I can't opt out. I'm going to have to pay both, and I'm not paying both. So I'm gonna get rid of my really good one, and because I got to pay the one into the state, and it's not nearly the coverage. And it's just those kinds of things that are aggravating. It's like, well, and high school kids or kids that are getting out of college and going to work, and now they don't have a choice. But 2 or 3 years ago, they had a choice. But why the cutoff? Why? Because they're trying to get every dime they can out of every citizen in the state of Washington that's working.
So, and I guess I didn't know that. So I remember the short little window of an opportunity to exempt, to ask for an exemption and get a plan. You're telling me that that's the only window for that will ever exist.
That's correct.
Even if somebody moves here from out of state, even if they just enter the job market, they will never have an opportunity.
That's correct.
That makes no sense.
Tell me about it. I mean, we're going to have individuals that come into the state, move into the state that have long-term care plans, already have them.
And been paying into them.
And paying into them. And they may have been paying into them for several years. And we're going to say to them, well, guess what? You get to pay into another one.
That's probably not as good, and the benefit isn't
I
as good.
can guarantee it's not as good. The other part that has really aggravated me is Ben Vetti, who runs this wonderful show.
And that is?
He's the director of the long-term care program. I think he has
WellCares,
whatever good name we want to give it. But he says, well, there isn't anything out there in the private sector that's as good as this. Well, let me tell you, I have a niece.
Yeah.
The niece used to work for Boeing. Boeing offered a long-term care plan, not through them, but through a company called Trustmark. And she makes over $100,000 a year. She pays $20 a month for her long-term care plan, which is substantially more than the $36,500. In addition to that, she has a death benefit, and she can take it wherever she goes, because guess what? She's not working for Boeing anymore. She's working for Lockheed, and she took it with her. And so, I mean, there are programs out there that make this look like the fallacy that it is. This thing does nothing.
Well, and the idea that there's anything the government offers that the private sector doesn't do better is just a joke to begin with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we get down to it and this thing is fully implemented, we got to come back and look at what are the yearly costs to administer this program by the government.
Yeah.
You know it's going to be, we've already spent $52 million and we haven't even got anything yet. And so the overhead to run this thing is going to be astronomical, and it's every year that this is going to come out of everybody paying in so that we can keep a few more government employees paid and on the payroll.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some of the problems that existed initially and see where those things are at right now.
Sure.
Have they been addressed? Have they not been addressed? So you talked about one of the glaring ones, which is if I live in Oregon or Idaho and live in Washington, and I got to pay every paycheck into this thing for a benefit I cannot get because I don't live in the state. That's absurd. So you guys were able to get those exemptions. However, true to government form, it is going to be very bureaucratic for those individuals, correct? Can you talk about that?
Well, every one of them individually has to send in the application to opt out of having to pay individually, and then do it every year.
Every year.
I mean, if the employer knows where you live, and if you live outside the state,
just don't take the money.
Just don't take the money. But no, can't do that. You know that few, if any, H-2A workers are going to be here long enough to be eligible for the benefit, but yet we're going to do it. I mean, the common sense of how do you run this program is just out the window. It's amazing what we're doing. And even ESD is starting to complain about the fact that they got to do this every year, and it's just ridiculous because it's not needed.
Yeah. So the other glaring issue that I remember up front, and I actually don't know if it ever got fixed, is if I want to retire somewhere.
Right.
Like if I want to go down to Arizona or Florida and leave this mess behind, then can I either get my money back or bring that benefit with me. Or
You walk away from it and you're done.
so like the government's trying to force people to retire here.
Yeah, well, guess what? The people I talk to, they're looking for a way out. That when they retire, they're moving.
Yeah.
You know, they're tired of this bureaucratic mess and all of the. Anyway, we won't get onto that subject, but yeah, no, it's not portable.
That makes no sense.
And it needs to be.
There was another issue, and forgive me if I'm mischaracterizing it because it's been a while and I'm just remembering it, that had to do with folks who were close to retirement.
Right.
Where they'd pay in for a few years, but then they'd never be fully vested in the benefit, correct? Was
right.
there ever a solution for them?
We came up with, I shouldn't say we, the solution was that if you were born before 1968, so 55, if you're 55 or older, for every year that you pay in, you get 10%. No, yeah, 10%. I'm correct. Yeah.
So you'll get a little bit of the benefit.
So the interesting part to that is ESD and DSHS are saying, well, you know, we're not going to have to pay anything out until 2026. So we don't, you know, we're not going to work on how do we do that? How do we handle all that? What are the roles? Well, it was pointed out to me today that if you're 55 and in January and you pay in for a year, so you're eligible for 10%. Mm-hmm. And if you have something catastrophic happen to you, you can apply for that 10%. Yeah. Or if you're 55 and you work for 2 years, now you can apply for 20%. But that's well before 2026 when they think that's going to be when they first start paying out.
I see.
So they're going to have to pay out. The possibility is maybe not lots, but they got to be ready to make some payments within a year, in our opinion.
And that kind of, I think, factors into, to me, what is the overarching question is it financially solvent?
Well, they're telling me that they expect to take in $900 million a year.
A year. Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, is it going to be solvent? I don't know. When you take in that kind of money, it's hard not to be. But I think as soon as people figure out how to use the system, and the best we can find out, there's no law, there's no reason why you can't be getting paid family and medical leave and also receiving the benefits from long-term care simultaneously.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, you're going to have people, what I would say is double dipping, and it's just amazing to me. The other thing that long-term care does is that it involves long-term disability. So if you're 30 years old, you go skiing and you break both your legs and you're going to be laid up, and you can apply if you meet the criteria, you can apply, and you can use up your 36.5. And then, but when you go back to work, you're going to be paying for the rest of your life, and you have no benefit.
Right.
I mean, it's, and I can remember I had two Democratic senators that are friends of mine that I work with when we're in session. Well, I work with them continually. Good people, and when they first, and this was last year, when Ben first announced that this could be used for long-term disability, they went, "What?" They didn't know it. Yeah. None of us knew it. It was about long-term care, that when you retired and you got into your 70s or 80s or whatever, and you needed that, it was there for you.
Right.
But even at that, 36.5. So I have a friend that owns 2 adult daycare, not adult care centers, adult care homes, I guess. And I asked him on Wednesday at Rotary, I said, not going to give your name out or anything, but in Yakima, Washington, what do you charge a month to be in your home? $9,000.
Wow.
That's Yakima. You can imagine what it is in Seattle or Tacoma, because it's going to be more. He does a very good job. I mean, he really does. But $9,000.
4 months.
4 months. It's a real mess. Just all the way around, in my opinion.
Is there any way to unring this bell?
Well, I don't think the legislature will do it. I wish they would. I think it's going to take an initiative of the citizens to get out there. And this is what I'm waiting. I'm anxious to see by the 7th, 14th, or 15th of July, when these individuals get their first paycheck, and this is taken out of their check. It's like, oh, so what's the reaction going to be?
Yeah.
I didn't authorize this. What is this for? I don't want that.
Well, the government would tell them, well, we're doing something for you that's going to benefit you 40 years down the road.
Yeah, right.
We're saving for you.
Unless you want to go live with your grandkids in Nebraska or something,
Yeah.
Then you can just be thankful you helped somebody else out.
Exactly.
I mean, this is the fallacy. This is a program that nobody asked for. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants it. I can guarantee you, nobody
Very
wants
few.
it. Yeah, very few wants it. Oh, SEIU might want it.
Yes. Yes.
and yet government is saying, "Oh, we know what's best. We know how to take care of you." And this is what they did. They basically crammed it down our throats, and they've done everything, in my opinion, they've done everything they can to try and minimize the number of people that were able to opt out.
Oh, 100%, no doubt in my mind.
They've worked that to the nth degree, and I don't think I don't think there's ever going to be a time when you have an opportunity, and you should have an opportunity. The idea is you want people to have long-term care, and so why would you force people to have to pay for this minuscule program when you could go out and get a good long-term care plan that works and that will be a benefit and not be able to opt out of paying the government?
So if you have any other questions on the long-term care tax, I'm sure we'll be talking about it more in the coming days. Always happy to try to get answers to you, even if I don't know them myself. So just reach out to us, undividedpod.com, undividedpod.com.